Ariel Helwani at the UFC 121 press conference with Dana White. And Dana, first things first, though, how was your couple days with the Vice President, Joe Biden? What was that like?
It was cool. Actually, he was a very nice guy. He was fun to hang out with, and I had a good time. I was honored.
Any shot of getting him to a UFC event?
I don't know. I think he's pretty busy.
Yeah. Apparently. What about the stuff that you did with Senator Reid?
Yeah, it was for both of them. Basically, what happened is these guys called on me to get out and try to get the younger people to vote, and I think it's important that we vote. I don't know if you saw this crazy thing where this ad was going to come out telling Hispanic people not to vote. I mean, that's insane. One of the things that we're very blessed in this country to have the opportunity to go out and actually vote on who's going to go out and represent us, and the fact that, the Vice President of the United States called on me to come out and try to get young people to vote. I'm honored, man. When the Vice President of the country calls you, you go.
When he says jump, you say how high.
Exactly.
All right, well, speaking of the Hispanic community, very big fight for the Hispanic community, and you guys have sort of pushed it that way. I mean, very much a part of the promo that Cain Velasquez could be the first ever Mexican heavyweight champion. How big would that be? We know about how big the Latin community, how much they like boxing, but we don't know about MMA. From your sort of research, how big would that be for the sport?
I think it would be huge. Traditionally, Hispanics love to have, whether it's a Mexican, Puerto Rican, or whatever, really get behind their fighters. And I think that, from what I've seen already, Cain Velasquez has a huge Hispanic following. So to beat, and not to mention the fact that for Cain to go out and beat a guy like Brock Lesnar, I mean, he's like the perfect bad guy for the Hispanic community, So I think for him to go out and beat a guy like Brock, it's big for him and his place in heavyweight history.
Cain is known to be a pretty reserved guy. Have you had to push him a little bit to go do these interviews with the Mexican outlets and all that? We
have absolutely not had to push him at all. He's been fantastic. He's one of the coolest, nicest, easiest guys to work with. I like him very much and have a lot of respect for him.
How has Brock and Cain responded to being part of primetime? Because both those guys aren't the type of fighters that you would think would really enjoy that process.
And they're not, but I think that's what makes it interesting to those are the guys that are most interesting to see, the guys that don't want it and don't want the cameras in their face and don't want you intruding in their behind the scenes time. I think it's what makes this one very interesting.
The numbers have been pretty well on, they've done very well on Spike, over 1 million a couple times. Would you want to do this again? Do you think it's worth keep on doing these? Because I know the budget for them is a little higher than the usual countdown show.
It's a lot higher. But yeah, I love them. I think it gives, like I said, a different perspective on the fighters. And it's what I love about it, too, is how real time it is. I mean, this thing, what you're going to see, is it tonight? It's tonight, Wednesday? Yeah. What you're going to see tonight was shot yesterday and the day before. So I love how real time they are.
Is there another one planned just yet?
No, we'll get by this fight, and then I'll figure out which one we'll do next.
All right, let's talk about Brock quickly. I mean, obviously, when he came back, from his illness to fight Shane Carwin, he talked about how he was a little more humble, different man and all that. Has he resorted to the old Brock Lesnar, or do you still see the same sort of humble Brock Lesnar?
Well, I don't know if I'd ever call Brock Lesnar humble. Is he humbler? Yes. Brock Lesnar is one of these guys that he doesn't really like people much. You know what I mean? He lives out in the middle of the woods for a reason. And I think now when we get him out in like the press conference today, I think he does very well with the media. He'll answer all the questions. He doesn't snap and go crazy. So has he changed since his illness? Absolutely. I think that he really appreciates the fact that he's back here now, because I'm telling you, there was a time where we didn't know. We didn't know, A, if he was ever going to come back, and B, if he did, how long it would take, and after he had his surgery. And right now he's in his prime. He's in the prime of his career. But if he had to go through this surgery and take a couple of years off, that's tough to come back from.
Is it a foregone conclusion at this point that he is the biggest draw in the UFC?
Yeah, I'd say he's the biggest draw, but I'll tell you who goes toe-to-toe with him is GSP. GSP is right in there with him. The great thing that we have right now is we have a lot of guys that draw, but there's no doubt that Brock's the biggest.
Jake Shields is making his UFC debut, long awaited. People have been wanting to see him inside the octagon for a long time. How long have you had your eye on him?
Yeah, I've known Jake for a long time, and I don't know if I ever really have my eye on somebody, but this is a kid who's put in a lot of hard work, lot of dedication and has made his way to the top. And like I said here today, you know, I believe that this kid right now could come in and fight for the title. You know, he just beat Dan Henderson at 185. He's going to fight here at 170. You know, it's pretty impressive.
Some of his opponents lately have called him a boring fighter. Do you think he's a boring fighter?
Yeah, listen, you're always going to have people. I like exciting fights too. I like, you know, if you had to ask me, I love guys who come out and fight like Wanderlei Silva and Akiyama and Chuck Liddell, and I think lots of people like that. But every fighter has his style, and every fight is different stylistically. Trying to think, Joe Daddy Stevenson and the Australian kid,
George Sotiropoulos.
100%, 3 rounds of pure grappling. One of the best fights I've ever seen. That fight was so fun. So every fight is different stylistically, you know?
Is it set in stone that if he wins Jake Shields, he gets the next shot at the title?
Yeah, if Jake Shields wins, he gets the next shot.
But not Kampman.
Right. Martin Kampman, I think, needs to get some more fights and work his way up. You know, because, you know, would Martin Kampman get the next shot? What about Fitch? Right. You know, I mean, there's other guys that are in that mix that would deserve the shot.
One other question about this card, Tito Ortiz. It's kind of interesting to see him fly under the radar here, and a lot of attention is not on him because Brock and Jake and all that. I mean, this is a guy who hasn't won in 4 years. Does he still have it? And he's had to overcome some serious injuries.
Yeah, you know, that remains to be seen. You know, Saturday night's a big night for Tito. You know, Tito's got to come out. Like you said, he hasn't won in 4 years. Tito needs to come out and win on Saturday night.
He said some pretty big things about the deaf community. I don't know if you've heard some of those things, but if you have, what are your thoughts?
That's Tito. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, Tito's got a history of saying crazy stuff, some stuff that makes no sense, some stuff that's just whatever. Do I think Tito hates deaf people and, you know, is out to hurt the deaf community? Absolutely not. I think Tito's, you know, I think he's trying to get under Matt's skin and, you know, and piss him off. That's what I think.
Okay, 3 quick things before I let you go. You mentioned at the press conference that something happened with New York. As a resident of the state of New York, I'm very intrigued. What's going on? You said you had to go to New York. Some developments?
No, well, first of all, I'm going to Boston to watch the Celtics and the Heat.
Right. Opening night.
Yep. After the Celtics beat the Heat, I'm flying up to New York and working with some stuff with the Olympics. So I think that the reality of mixed martial arts becoming an Olympic sport is getting closer and closer.
2012, or would that be too soon?
I mean, who knows? I mean,
what do they want from you, though?
I'm not really getting into it. I'm taking a meeting up there and bringing some people with me, and you know, we'll see what happens. I always say it. I as far as making this thing an Olympic sport, not my job. That's not what I'm out to do. But if softballs get lobbed up to me and I can hit them, I'll do it.
I'm sure you're aware of this. After UFC 120, a lot of fans upset about, you know, ESPN putting out the results and, you know, Spike showing a tape delay, whether or not they should have put those out, all that stuff. What do you make of all this? I mean, now that this is a major league sport, we don't see many sports shown on tape delay. Do you think it's time that Spike starts to show these fights live?
I think you're a complete jackass to even complain about that. You know what I mean? That's why on my Twitter, I said, listen, you got a problem with ESPN showing the results? Tell ESPN. Don't tell me. You know, what am I going to do about it? Like, ESPN gives a shit, I think, about them running the results. But, you know.
At the end of the day, though, pretty good that ESPN is covering the sport, right?
Well, how about they're covering the sport, and how about Spike's putting it on TV? You know, I mean, the crazy thing is about fans is you start to get spoiled, and you're, like, bitching about stupid stuff. Guess what? ESPN is a sports network. If you don't want any spoilers, stay off the TV. Right. Stay off the. It's very. Listen, if you want to stay away from MMA, it's pretty easy. Stay away from the TV if you don't want to see the results. I just think people like things to bitch about.
Okay, final question, and not to end on a sour note, but I'm sure you're aware of some of the things Frank Shamrock said on my show this past week about you being the reason why MMA has not been legalized in New York. Would love to hear your comments on that.
Actually, I'd love to hear what you honestly really think about that. You know what I mean? I'll tell you right now, okay. Frank Shamrock is an irrelevant jackass, okay? He's a two-faced lion. I mean, Frank Shamrock, I bet he didn't say on your radio show that he flew out to my office a month ago, sat down with me and tried to make peace with me. Did he tell you that?
No.
That's weird. I wonder why he didn't tell that, because you're a two-faced lion chump. That's what you are, Frank Shamrock. You're not going to do anything to get anything. What have you done for mixed martial arts in the last 10 years? What have you done? You haven't done anything. You're just a liar and a guy who's trying to keep himself relevant.
He tried to get back into the UFC?
He didn't try to get back into the UFC. He tried to make peace with me.
Right.
Said, come on, let's work this thing out and everything else. I don't want to work with a douchebag like him. He's a two-faced liar. I can't stand the guy. He's a phony.
All right, we'll leave it at that. UFC 121 goes down this Saturday night from the Honda Center in Anaheim, California. Brock Lesnar defending his heavyweight title against Cain Velasquez. Thank you so much for the time, Dana.
Pleasure, bro.